Okay, so let's talk about the enhanced transparency available in Lumion 7. So basically when the sun passes through a transparent material, such as like a curtain, the sun wouldn't have like this hard line for this like absolutely opaque curtain, especially if the curtain is very like sheer and transparent. So the sun would kind of pass through and cast a shadow or a slightly different light would come through that curtain than what would go through the glass. So in Lumion 7, it's really, the quality has been dialed up in such a way that you get these very realistic, transparent materials. And so, curtains come preloaded, so then we have another category or a class of materials called curtains. And we're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at how you can assign a transparency to your own material. And then we're also going to look at subsurface scattering and assigning that kind of waxiness effect to a material that you import. So to do that, we're going to hop into our new Master Suite demonstration model and take a look around, and I'm going to demonstrate some of these enhanced transparencies. So check it out. In Lumion, I'm going to load up this Master Suite model. We'll say OK. And when we hop into this thing, the first thing you're going to notice is that when the sun is passing through that window, here it is, when the sun is passing through that window, that curtain is cutting a very, very sharp, shadow line. It's very opaque. So what I want to do though is I want to add a different curtain material to it. So same deal, I activate my materials tool, click on the material that I created in SketchUp, and then I'm going to go to my indoor library and look at my curtains collection. And then you can see that, watch what happens when I choose a curtain. You can see this shadow on the bed, and then we'll choose a different curtain. And there, you can see that pattern of the curtain is like the transparency is being cast down onto that bed. So something with more of a pattern there. Let me double click on that curtain and adjust the scale of the pattern. And it's not showing totally right now. I can see that something's happening, but when I render this thing out, it's going to be a nice clean shadow on that bed. So we'll get there. But that's how you adjust, with these different transparencies. Really dialed up in Lumion 7. So those are your curtain materials. Maybe the scale could be a little different. Actually, I don't know if I like that one as much. I think this one's pretty cool. I'm going to double click on that, drop that scale down, and there we go. So you can kind of see that happening. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is add a transparency to a material that I imported. So this is one that I used in SketchUp. I'll just click on that lampshade, go to Standard Material, and then in our new material editor under Transparency, I can choose to have the transparency dialed up. So when I dial that up, you can see that transparency happens. And for that lampshade, I don't want a lot of transparency, but I definitely want just a little bit, because then it's going to show like a lampshade would. Remember, if you hold Shift on any of these sliders, you can really get it to move in a slower way. So I'm just going to dial it up just until I see that light bulb, and that'll probably be just fine. Okay, now the next thing I want to look at is subsurface scattering or waxiness. So here's our material, Kudu 10, whatever that is, and I'm going to go to a standard material, and for this demonstration, let me say OK on my materials. And for what we're doing right now, I just want to bring that sun around and make sure that it's like really hitting this thing so I can demonstrate my point the way I want to. All right, so I think something more like that. See how it's like the sun is really hitting that little piece there? Okay, so I'm going to click on, go back to my materials, click on that again, and you can see that I already did add, I went from an imported material into a standard material, and when I do that, it automatically adds some gloss and reflectivity. So maybe we could have a little bit of that, and then really what I want to do is dial up that waxiness, and the waxiness is what makes it kind of glow. Think of like a candle. If the sun was hitting a candle, it would just kind of have this like subtle glow to the surface, you know? It's not just like this hard, solid, opaque object. So subsurface scattering, Lumion 7. It's a really nice quality upgrade. Allows us to dial up, you know, I don't know if this is going to make or break your rendering, but it just is one more level of realism that's breathed into each image that you create. And it's so easy. It's just a slider, just like everything else in Lumion. So anyway, so let's take a look too at, you know, that's with our imported material when we add that waxiness effect to it. Let me go back to my material library, go to Indoor, and under Plastics, I'm going to go to this last page and choose like a goofy green plastic. That one has kind of a texture to it. Yeah, these all kind of do. That one looks pretty good. Okay, I'll double click on that plastic, and I'm going to change the color of it to, you know, maybe something just a little more like off-white. And then I'm going to dial up the waxiness. And let's just go nuts on it. We'll make it like really waxy like that. Okay, so there you can see, like, you know, you start to see that like the sun kind of comes through it in that different way. So anyway, we've got our shadows coming in off those transparent curtains. We got that kind of waxy sculpture for our lampshade. And I think that the only thing left to do now is to render this image and see what it actually looks like when we're not in build mode, but when we get that full-on effect of like a higher quality rendering. So I'm going to say okay. We'll save those materials. We'll go into photo mode, and I already have a few scenes set up and with our effects all added in there. So let's go into, let's see, this image looks pretty good. See, I like this image because we got the, you know, the lights are really clear. We've got a nice shadow on the bed, and then we can see that the sunlight is hitting our sculpture over there. So that's what's really going to dial up that waxiness, right? Okay, so let's render this at 1920 by 1080. I'll save this as image 2 and hit go. Now, let's see, how long is this going to take? So, you know, 16 passes on this rendering, and you know, as it's going through, you can see like kind of the different layers of that the transparency. I guess it renders it out, compresses them all, and figures it out somehow. But anyway, speed has drastically increased as well in Lumion 7. That's my perception. 16 passes on that image, and we're done. So let's go to our desktop. Under my temp folder, I've got my JPEG here. And so now here you can see we've got our sunlight casting through this curtain. You can kind of see that more subtle effect, like the pattern is being projected onto the bed. And then also you can see here that this sculptural piece has more of a glow to it. So those are the enhanced transparencies in Lumion 7, where to find them, and kind of a general overview of what they're doing. Now, when I look at this image, what's lacking is our cove lighting. So, you know, we want to have that nice line lighting up there. So that's what we're going to look at in the next tutorial. So stick with me, and we'll show you how to not only place a line light, but also do it very accurately. So I'll catch you in that next tutorial.